Hello and welcome to the CX Files for 29th of April 2024. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And I'm Peter Ryan. Mark, I'm actually in Atlanta right now, and I will be seeing you imminently for the beginning of CX Outsourcers, where, as we all know, you are a panelist on the CX Podcasters panel.
Yep, looking forward to it. And the welcoming dinner is coming up soon, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. In less than 24 hours, we will all be gathering at Terminus 330 in Atlanta for the opening night reception, which is always a good time. We can recall how fun the one was at the Haberdashery in Glasgow almost a year ago to this day. And I can tell you that the festivities will begin in earnest. It'll be a great couple of days. And on that note, Mark, can you tell us who we're going to be talking to? Because that will tie in with CX Outsourcers.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one more of the CXO themed discussions. I spoke with Chris Gillen, who you know very well, and you
Yeah.
invited him to speak and give a keynote at the CXO event. And Chris was talking about generative AI and really how it's kind of changed and shaped the CX industry over the last 18 months or so, but also not so much not so much as the media would have led us to believe about a year ago.
Yeah, and I think, Mark, one of the reasons that we love to have Chris speak at CX Outsourcers, because he's an incredibly uh, thoughtful individual. He comes with an incredible legacy. I've known Chris for roughly a decade, and he's a straight shooter. And as you'll remember, he was a keynote speaker at CXO in Glasgow last year, and his presentation was down to earth. It was factual. And I think what people appreciated, and what I certainly appreciate from Chris, is the fact he's able to deliver what I think is very actionable insight and advice. And this is why we thought he would be an outstanding person to come in and provide a keynote talking a little bit about generative AI and where it's going. So it's going to be a fantastic talk. And I'm delighted that he was able to give you a bit of a preview about what some of the key themes are going to be during his presentation. So from your perspective, when you talked to Chris, what were some of those key elements that he's going to be bringing to the table without giving too much away, of course?
Yeah, of course. And we really tried to just do a sort of preview rather than giving everything away from his presentation. But I mean, Chris heads up a closer look, and he's actually a
Yeah.
local, isn't he? So he's based in Atlanta. And his company is really sort of looking at consumer intelligence and insight and the way that consumers behave, and that's really his angle. He's kind of looking at how does it affect the customer to brand interface and how consumers will behave when they engage with brands. And so, and I think that's interesting, because what we've seen from the BPO community is a sort of move away from that focus on the chatbots and much more to how AI is improving the contact center itself. So it's quite interesting to sort of see that change in focus from the BPO community. But certainly, Chris was saying that there's a lot of intelligence around how much do people actually want to talk to people. So I think that we're kind of going through this phase at the moment where there is a technical possibility for more automation, but we don't necessarily always want it to happen.
I think that that's very sage counsel from Mr. Gillen, and this is something that we've been picking up as well on in the research that we conduct annually. And Mark, as you know, we've just finished the 2024 Front Office CX Omnibus Survey that sounded the views of 750 CX captive side decision makers, and that very much aligns with what Chris is talking about, with what Chris is discussing in his keynote. So it really remains to be seen the direction that generative AI is going to go as it tries to meld a technology with what consumers are looking for. But I think this is going to be a great talk by Chris, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal interview, and I can't wait to hear it.
Hey, Chris, it's great to get you back on CX Files. Now, we are doing a short preview of your CX Outsourcers talk. I know that you're doing a keynote there on the contact center of the future and how AI is helping business process outsourcing companies and contact centers to kind of evolve into the future. So what are some of the key messages if you're sort of
Yeah.
doing the elevator pitch then?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Mark. I'm super excited about the CXO conference here in my hometown of Atlanta, right in our backyard. So really enjoyed the last one in Glasgow. And I bring that up because when we met in Glasgow last year for CXO, chatbot had really just kind of been released and AI was really hitting the market in a big way. This year, we're over a year in, and a lot, as you know, has changed. And we're starting to see businesses actually have some success implementing AI, various types of chatbots. But the call centers continue to lag a little bit. And so what we really wanted to talk about, and we've done a lot of homework for this, is really what is the state of the call center industry as it relates to artificial intelligence. So we're going to talk about kind of the state of the industry, where things are. We're going to talk about what's ahead. We're going to talk about how that really is impacting call centers. And we've done a couple of pretty cool things. I don't want to give too much away because I want it to be a little bit of surprise, but we just concluded a very large consumer survey where we specifically talked to, I think, over 1,500, maybe 1,700 consumers here in the US about how they felt about AI, which is something we haven't really seen much of. So when it comes to AI and customer service, what are their thoughts about how they feel about interacting with AI? So we're going to share those results with everyone, which I think there's going to be some really interesting nuggets that come out of that. We'll be sharing the report. But the essence of what we're really talking about is a lot of businesses, Mark, as you know, are somewhat stuck. They may not have the technical prowess or the bandwidth or quite simply the time to really think about an AI strategy. How can they implement that? What does that look like? So the first things I tell companies, if you're not already on the path of thinking about that or have some sort of implementation, you're already really far behind. So that's one. Two is all this talk about AI versus the human experience. There's a little equation that I came up with where it says AI plus HEI equals success. And the HEI is the human emotional intelligence. So we see the play of AI and human interaction working very, very well together. And we're actually going to show an example. We have a partner that we've been working with now for a long time. They've done work for my company, A Closer Look. And I think what you're going to see is the first prototype, if you will, of a real plug and play frontline generative AI tool that call centers could implement more easily. And then we'll give them some tools and strategy on how that might look. So jam-packed, full session, lots to cover, but really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like you said, I mean, I don't want you to sort of give away all of the
Right.
content, but maybe it would be great just to get you to comment on what I see as the kind of the big split in the discussion here, and that's whether it's more affecting the direct customer interface, so the chatbots,
Yep.
or being used more inside the contact center to
Yeah.
automate processes, make life easier for the agents.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you seeing there?
Yeah. Well, I think the natural starting point for a lot of businesses is, thinking about how do I drive, continue to drive revenue and how do I continue to lower cost? So most companies, including BPOs, have their sights set on some sort of implementation around frontline customer service. There was a recent story that came out for Klarna, the buy now, pay later company, had fully implemented frontline generative AI and said it was doing the work of 700 agents, right? You have to take them at face value for that, but that certainly is very encouraging if that's the case. I think that's where a lot of businesses are really starting. Low-hanging fruit. How can I take some of the mundane, basic kind of call types off the plate of the agent, get that to a bot that interfaces with the customer really, really well, reduce some cost, and really what I like to say, toe in the water is where they're starting. Some companies are a little bit more advanced that have been able to do that. But here's the big thing, Mark, and we're going to spend some time at the conference talking about this. I think there's a little bit of misperception when you think about AI in particular, and you read articles and news stories. It's easy to fool yourself into thinking that you can find a business, you can dump your data into it, and magically the AI does all the work and you wash your hands of it. And that couldn't be farther from the truth when it comes to data transformation. Most businesses aren't even in a place right now with their data to be able to have that in any sort of format to easily start thinking about implementation of generative AI when it comes to back-end processes or data analytics. And so we'll spend some time talking about some of the more common misperceptions about AI. It is a lot of work, and if you invest in it, it works well. But that's kind of where I see a lot of companies starting in the front. How can I lower cost? How can I increase customer satisfaction? And I think that inherently works its way into more automated back office processes and data analytics.
Yeah, and it seems that there's an interesting difference here in the Glasgow CXO, where that was a few months after OpenAI launched ChatGPT, which was, although obviously it's not the first AI tool, but it was the one that really got public attention. It went mainstream, and people outside of the tech and AI community really noticed it then.
Yes.
And I think that, I remember at that time, you had the Guardian, the Washington Post, all the kind of mainstream media saying jobs like contact center agent are imminently going to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
I think now, like a year on, listening to you, you're talking much more about processes being replaced rather than complete jobs and individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things people are starting to learn, and I think you're going to see a lot more of this year into next year as AI matures, continues to change, but how businesses are thinking about it. And I think one of the interesting things is, do I see disruption? Do I see, it removing some jobs from the economy? Yes. But those are very, very mundane, low-hanging fruit, low-paying jobs that people probably don't like doing anyway. So the thinking is those people then potentially get reskilled and upskilled and move into other parts of the organization where their job becomes more meaningful to them, more, I feel, there's value in what I'm doing versus just sitting and pushing a button all day. So I do think there will be disruption, but I think the inciting thing is it'll create more efficiency and create more opportunities for those people in those jobs today to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Chris, that's a great intro and summary. And we'll look forward to seeing you in Atlanta and seeing your talk at CXO.
I'm really excited about it. I look forward to seeing everybody, including you, Mark.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.